Hey guys, so today we are going to go over my Lightning Strike armor stacker. This is a Lightning Strike build utilizing the replica Dream Feather to get a lot of armor, and we're getting a lot of attack damage from our armor, and we are scaling our armor, and we're also scaling our auras by quite a bit. So we're an aura stacker slash armor stacker build with the Lightning Strike and Vengeant Cascade. And yeah, it's very similar to my Smite armor stacker build that I made a week or so ago. So if you're interested in Smite, then go check that out. And the gear that we're using is pretty much exactly the same, except for a few small differences. So it's very easy to swap over. If you've been playing the Smite version, you want to try this out, or if you try this build out and you want to try the Smite build out, it's very easy just to swap over. Alright, so let's see. There's a couple of things I want to talk about before we go into the actual build guide. And that is, first of all, this build guide will be mainly for my current version of the build, which is running the Mageblood with quite a lot of expensive items. As you can see, we've got 1, 2, and 3 passive voices, and a few other pretty expensive items, like a perfectly rolled Ashes of the Stars. However, these items aren't really needed, and you can play the build without the Mageblood, without the Ashes of the Stars. There are some budget options, and you can find those in the budget PoB that I'll have in the description. We'll also go over the budget version somewhat in this guide as well, and I'll reference some items from there too. You don't really need a lot of these expensive items, and you can get away with a tighter budget of say 15 to 20 divines. And on the Smite version, which is pretty much similar in gear level, on the budget builds, I was able to clear wave 30 on the Simulacrum. I farmed my Mageblood with that build and all of my 1 passive voices. So it is definitely a capable build, and a lot of members in my Discord have also been trying to build out the Smite version and have had success with that, and as well as some of my work in progress Lightning Strike POBs that some people have been trying out as well, saying they've all said that it's been working out great and they've been able to clear the wave 30 Simulacrum with it. So that being said, I actually haven't personally been playing on the budget version or a non-Mageblood version of this Lightning Strike build. I've only actually started playing it, since I've already gotten all my gear. So I personally do not know how it will play, but I expect it's very similar to the Smite build. So in the description there'll be a POB for the budget version and for my current version, and I'm also going to link a Google Doc to armor stacker build compendium that I've been making. It's got a lot of information there for Smite armor stacker, and I'll be adding the Lightning Strike armor stacker info there too. It's got a lot of trade links to the gear items you want to buy, and a little bit of info on the gems and stuff like that. So I definitely recommend you go and check that out. It'll help you quite a bit when you're buying your items or setting up your gems and stuff like that. Alright, so let's go over the gear. Let's see what's changed and what items we're using. So we did already mention the sword. Using the sword, we can go over my crucibles for this. They're actually really bad. The only good thing is this getting frenzy charge on kill and attack speed. I have this lightning damage here, 1 to 17, amazing. And then the frenzy, and then I've got some strength, intelligence. I really do like getting this intelligence because we are using the Shaper's Touch, which gives us, first of all, we get accuracy per intelligence. We're also getting mana and energy shield from our intelligence, just by what intelligence actually gives you. And we're also getting increased evasion rating per 10 intelligence. So this is very nice because the more evasion rating we have, the more armor we have, and that translates into damage. For the helmet, I actually bought a new base and just made a new helmet. You basically just make this with a Deafening Essence of Loathing, and you spam that for a bit until you get a good amount of ES, or you get some good suffixes like resists and intelligence, and then you can use Eldritch Crafting to do the prefixes until you have a good amount of ES. You typically want around 300 or so, I'd say is good. And for the implicits, you want to get the mana reservation efficiency, and my my other implicit is kind of wrong. You don't really want this. You want the reduced mana cost of attacks. I just didn't really need it because my Lightning Strike is already 0 mana. Alright, so for the body armor, we're using Doriani's prototype. This will make nearby enemies have the same lightning resistance as we do, and we are reducing our lightning resistance by quite a bit. You can see we're at like about minus 175. You can actually get up to minus 200 is the actual cap for the negative resistance. So this chest piece will give us quite a lot of damage. As you can imagine, minus 175 lightning resistance is quite a bit. And this also helps us negate a lot of these annoying arch nemesis mods, such as increased elemental resistance. There's some mobs that can have like these elemental resistances or immune to exposure and stuff like that. And a lot of those mods will lower damage on some other builds. But since we have the Doriani's prototype, none of these affect us, and the damage does feel very consistent. There's no real mods that will actually reduce your damage in that way. I mean, of course, there is the Soul Leader and stuff like that, and some other mods that just provide flat damage reduction to monsters. Those will affect you, but a lot of the annoying resistance ones do not affect us at all. Now, there are some downsides. There are these Mana Siphoner mobs that will do lightning degen, and the Doriani's prototype only protects us from lightning hits, so we take our armor applies to lightning damage taken from hits, right? But not from lightning degen, so we will die pretty quickly to lightning degen. Thankfully, there isn't that many of them in the game. The main offender is the Mana Siphoner mob, but there are some ways to build some defenses for this, and generally when you get enough gear, enough damage, enough ES, they are not really a problem. I haven't really died in about 3 or 4 days to one of these guys, so definitely it's not the end of the world. And another thing you can do is you can pick up this Leaf Shade node here. Leaf Shade, very nice, gives you extra second or so to react, and pretty much completely negates the problem where they spawn on top of you and you can't see the ring because like visual bugs, and the effect doesn't render in time and all this kind of, you know, bullshit like that. So definitely very nice defense node. I'm not using it right now because I really don't think I need it, honestly. I'm kind of used to the playstyle and countering those mobs, so it hasn't really been that much of a problem for me recently, so I'm not using it. So for the amulet, I'm using the Ashes of the Stars. Now there is another amulet you can use, and this will be in the PoB for the budget version. And that is going to be the Eternal Struggle. And actually, I do recommend using the Eternal Struggle over Ashes of the Stars until you can get a lot of these extra aura effect small clusters. And the only way to really do that is to use voices. So that's the reason why we're using voices, is to get a lot of aura effect. So I think it's probably good that we explain a couple of breakpoints here, why we need a certain amount of aura effect. And the main reason is, in order to hit 90 all res, you need a few things. First of all, you need a level 23 purity. So in our case, we have a level 24. It's from the Ashes, but generally you only need level 23. You can see it's in the Shaper's Touch gloves that has a +2 to socket aura gems. You could do +2 AoE too if you want. And so you put a level 21 purity in a +2 item and you get a level 23 purity. So let's look at the difference. Right now it's giving us an additional 5% maximum cold res. Alright, let's take it out. If we take it out, it only goes to 4%. So there you can see we get 1 extra percent by having a level 23 purity. Now all of this is going to get scaled by our aura effect. Let's quickly turn this purity back on. Okay, so it gets scaled by aura effect. So this base number, 5%, will get scaled by our aura effect. So if we have 200% aura effect, that 5% is going to become 10%, right? Okay, and the way you look at this in PoB is you go over to the Calcs tab. We go over the aura, it's purity of ice. And we got to look at this aura effect mod. So basically you want this sort of number. And let's see if we actually disable one of these introspections, You can see we do drop down to 89% resistance. And if we look at the aura mod, it is 2.75. Okay, so what we can do here in this to kind of see what aura effect mod we actually need to hit is we just type it in the custom config. So let's just copy it from here just to make it a little bit faster so we don't have to type everything. So let's go in the config. All right, now we're back up to 90. Let's just see how much we need. Let's try adding 5%. Let's see, 5% did the trick, 4% doesn't work. So let's look at what happened when we added 5%. So we need at least 2.8 aura effect mod to be able to hit this 90 auras. All right, so for the rings, I'm using a ring with a grace aura effect implicit. Now in my build, I have this ruby flask that helps me cap my fire resistance, and I also have the purity of ice, which helps a lot with the cold resistance. So I'm not really that starved on cold and fire resistance, so I can get away with using one of these synthesized rings. If you don't have a lot of fire resistance or you're kind of lacking resistances, I recommend going for either a ruby or a 2-stone or sapphire ring so you can get your resistances. In general, you're going to want a ruby ring because fire resistance will be a lot harder to come by than cold. Alright, for the second ring, I decided to go for the unset ring this time because I was very socket starved and I really wanted to fit Berserk in the build. So just in order so I can use this, I got the unset ring. The stats we're looking for on pretty much all of our rings is going to be a very high intelligence roll, and then a tier 1 fire resistance, and maybe, tier 2, preferably tier 1 fire resistance, some energy shield as a prefix, and a open prefix so we can craft on the non-channeling skills craft or the 5% reduced mana cost of skills. And ideally, I guess another good prefix to have would be the flat added lightning damage. Increased elemental damage with attacks is not really that great because we have a lot of increased damage already that we're going to be hitting those diminishing returns with the increased damage, so getting flat damage will be a lot better than increased in that case. Okay, so for the shield, we're using Aegis Aurora. This pairs very nicely with our armor stacking because we recover energy shield equal to 2% of our armor. And since we're at like over a million armor, we're pretty much getting full ES every time we block, so kind of makes you immortal in most situations. There are some very nice nodes on the tree you can get. This is the one I sort of settled with for now, so I have some increased lightning damage. I mean, it's okay. Then I have fire resistance and then -20 to lightning resistance. Very nice with the Doriani's prototype. Reducing our lightning resistance is very nice damage increase. You can basically think of that as 20 lightning penetration. So very nice. And then I have a Grace Aura effect node. This isn't a very high rolled one, but still very nice. Alright, so we went over the gloves too, and I guess, yeah, the belt, Mageblood. If you're not using the Mageblood, you'll be using the String of Servitude with the Grace Aura effect enchant, or I guess corruption. And for the boots, we're using March of the Legion. This is a very important part of the build. Allows us to get a free aura, basically, and gives you a lot of gem levels on the aura that you have in here. And in this case, we have Grace. You can see we have a level 29 Grace. And yeah, so that's the gear, guys. Go over the flask real quick, and then we'll get into the gems because I kind of want to explain, the different setups you need, because there's a lot of things that people trying this build out kind of have trouble with, and a lot of it has to do with the gem and this boot Grace setup kind of thing. So we'll get into that real quick. Let's cover the flask first. So for the flask, we want a basalt, stibnite, silver, and the ruby flask. Bottled Faith if you're using Mageblood. If you're not using Mageblood, then you probably want to have a jade flask here instead. Alright, so for the suffixes, you want one with evasion, one with attack speed, one with armor, and then one with this crafted mana cost, reduced mana cost of skills. And the fifth flask is kind of up to you. You can put whatever you want on here. You can get like reduced effect of curses, reduced effect of chill, can be very nice. stuff like that. So anyways, you can look into PoB to see what kind of flasks I chose in the budget version or any of the other versions. Yeah, so check that out. Okay, so let's go over the gems real quick. And first of all, we are going to go over this grace setup here in our boots. Now the gem setup here is very important, that you have these exact gems in here or this won't work. So basically what we're doing is we have grace socketed into the March of the Legion. March of the Legion says socketed gems are supported by a level 25 divine blessing. So if you don't know what divine blessing is, it basically makes the aura, instead of casting it like a normal aura appear, whenever you cast it, you can see here, it's a temporary aura. It's like a little buff you get, right? So it lasts for like 18 seconds and you get this grace aura. All right, now usually this is actually going to be costing quite a bit of mana, but we are reducing the mana cost of grace down to 0. All right, you can see here, there's no mana cost. Now if we take off the flask with the reduced mana cost of skills, you can see it's costing quite a bit of mana, 388 mana to just cast this. The goal is to reduce the mana cost of grace down to about 99 or 0 ideally, by using a couple of things. And first of all, we're using this flask, right? So we have this flask with the reduced mana cost of skills. And then we have an anomalous increased duration. This is going to give us another 20% reduced mana cost of the skill. And we have a divergent inspiration. Now this is also giving us a 44% reduced mana cost. So if you're on a Mageblood setup, these two, the flask and these two gems is enough to get it down to 0. So that's reason why the grace has increased reservation mod on this little thing here. It doesn't really affect us because we're casting it as a temporary aura and it costs 0 mana, so it doesn't really matter how much reservation this grace uses, because it's costing 0 mana and we're casting it as a temporary aura. And this is pretty much the only 2 alternate quality gems that you're going to need. Like, these 2 gems are mandatory to actually play the build. The rest of the alternate gems you can buy, later as small upgrades if you want. All right, so for the rest of the links, they're pretty much self-explanatory. I will go over the Lightning Strike links real quick actually. So Lightning Strike, we have the same links as Smite. All that's changed is Lightning Strike. Now on the budget versions in the PoB, you'll see I'm recommending you guys use Inspiration. And the only reason I put that in is because we are using a Sniper's Mark cast on hit, or Mark on hit support, Sniper's Mark. And this will actually cost quite a bit of mana. So if you are finding that you are having mana issues because Sniper's Mark keeps, proccing and then you're running out of mana, then maybe swap to Inspiration instead of Awakened Elemental Focus or Awakened Added Lightning, so you can get a lower cost on your Lightning Strike, and perhaps maybe even put Sniper's Mark down to a level 1. You'll probably lose a little bit of damage, but or maybe even completely take the Mark on hit support out and just cast it manually, but that is going to be kind of annoying. So yeah, that's the Smite, not the Smite, the Lightning Strike links. And just remember, if you're having mana issues, then you can swap over to Inspiration instead of Awaken Added Lightning or Elemental Focus. The damage is pretty much exactly the same. And actually with Inspiration, you're going to get extra crit chance, so it'll help you keep up your Elemental Overload and maybe make it feel a little bit more consistent. Okay, so that is the gear and the gems. And once again, guys, in the description, there's going to be the link to the Google Doc you can check out. That will have all of this info in there too, so I recommend checking that out. Okay, let's quickly go over the talent tree and some of the jewels. Actually, no, wait, actually before that, I always forget this, so we're going to go over the Pantheons first, guys. Sorry, I always forget to put these Pantheons in my videos. So we are using the Brine King. We're only using this for the effect, what do you call it? Chance to avoid being frozen. Okay, so we get our freeze immunity from here, and then I like using the Ralakesh just for the basically it gives you bleed immunity, right? So don't have to worry about that. Right, so that's the Pantheons, and let's go over the tree. It is pretty self-explanatory, I think. Let's see if there's anything to mention. Alright, point blank. It does feel kind of bad spending all these points just to get this point blank, but I do think the damage increase is worth it. You could actually skip this and, I don't know, maybe you can go get Leaf Shade or get some more jewel sockets so you can have another small cluster with introspection. There's a lot of things you can do, and there's I think this area here on the tree and then this point blank, these are all kind of optional. Like you can kind of choose which one you want. You don't really need this here. You don't really need this here. Like this is only giving you a damage increase. So say you already have enough damage, then well then you can drop point blank. You can go grab Leaf Shade for the extra defense, or you know, you can get some more small clusters. You could get some more jewel sockets. This kind of part of the tree is sort of up to you, and we're going to swap over to PoB. Alright, so like I was saying, this whole area is optional. Alright, this part here, the point blank, see, we do lose quite a bit of damage, but yeah, and this area too, this is also optional. All this is giving us is damage basically, and I guess a little bit of ES. You see we lost a little bit of hit chance, and that's because of the decks, you know, on these nodes. But yeah, so this is optional here. You can, you know, take this off. Or you could, you know, take this top part out. Say you really want frenzies, you could run frenzy charge when you hit a marked enemy. So now you got your frenzy charges, stuff like that. So very nice. It's up to you to decide what you want to take. But I like this setup like this, so that's what I'm running. Okay, now let's go over the budget version. This is basically my Smite character that I used while I was farming up my Mageblood, the exact same gear. And what I've gone and done is I've kind of stripped it of all the extras it had. So I got rid of the +2, I got rid of the, you know, +2, +1 chest. And I did lower a lot of the gem levels. I took out a lot of the, how would you say, the alternate quality gems. I took those out and I put in, you know, rather cheap ones, just normal level 21 gems. And in the main 6 link, you can see we're not running any, you know, awakened gems. Let's explain this part here. So in order to simulate the vengeant cascade, I kind of made this like scuffed setup over here. So I figured that you would get 2 lightning strike projectile hits. So you get 1 hit and then the returning hit does another hit, right? So that's 2 lightning strike projectile hits. And then since we can have 2 Vol lightning strikes up at the same time, well then that means we are getting 4 Vol lightning strike projectiles, right? So that comes out, that's why there's 4 here. And then we have the lightning strike melee hit, which is here. And so that's why this setup is kind of made like this. So we have, first of all, the one that's simulating the Vol setup, the one that's simulating this is simulating the projectiles, the double projectiles. You can see we have it set to 2. And then we have the main 6 link. This is simulating the melee hit portion. And this is how we come up to this 37 million DPS. So you can see even on this budget version, in the best possible scenario, this is, you know, we have our frenzies active, we had this, you know, alchemist genius from our timeless jewel, stuff like that. You can see we are getting quite a bit of damage. And yeah, this will take a little bit of setup. This is also with the Smite. You can see it's not even a phantasmal Smite. So if you take this off, let's just see. So we do drop down to, you know, quite a bit of damage. So that's the gem setup on the budget version. And let's go over the budget version. As you can see, I've actually skipped out on this area here on the budget version. Well, that's because we lost the charisma enchant, which is pretty big on the budget version where you need a lot of mana reservation. It's pretty hard to get. And also the aura effect it provided helped us to get to 90 all res. So in order to get 90 all res, this is pretty much the only thing I could think of, guys. Sorry, but it's going to have to be a 5 passive voices. Now these are very cheap now, so it's not going to be that big of a problem. So we basically needed to have one more introspection node to be able to hit the 90 all res. And so I guess the only really thing I could think of is to run a 5 passive voices. So in the budget version, we'll have a 5 passive. You can upgrade this to a 3 passive later on, or even a 1 passive if you really want to. And as you can see, we've skipped out on this entire part of this evasion scaling. Now this will actually be more damage if you can get to here, but there were some other things we needed to take, mainly this big 5 passive voices, the extra mana reservation. See, we are running quite a few more 3 what do you call it, small clusters, 3 passive small clusters. And I did decide to go and get Point Blank on this version, and mainly because I wanted you guys to be able to access Frenzy. And this Culling Strike isn't really important because, you know, we already have Culling Strike from the Eternal Struggle. If you don't really like that, then yeah, you don't really have to grab this. But I think for the Frenzies, it is pretty nice, right? If you already have Frenzy for somewhere else, you can just take this off completely. Wouldn't bother with it, and maybe just even go and grab this. Alright, so that is the budget version of the build, and I will have these links in the description, of course, and also in the Armor Stacker build compendium, so definitely go check that out. It's got a lot of useful stuff. Alright, well, that's going to be it for today, guys, and I really hope that you enjoy this build. I've been playing Armor Stacker for quite a while, and the Lightning Strike version this time with the Vengeant Cascade does feel very good to play, and I'm pretty happy with the results. But that's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.